Hello and welcome to the Non-Perfect Parents Club podcast. I'm Emma, a mama of 2 girls, an ex-nursery practitioner and the creator of the Non-Perfect Parents Club. The Non-Perfect Parents Club is all about support, honesty, truths, acknowledging that none of us can be perfect parents because it's impossible, and basically just speaking the unspoken. The only rule here is no judgment allowed. I love hearing people's stories. I love finding out about other parents, their family dynamics, their values, and how they tick. So that is what this podcast is going to be. Some great honest conversations about parenting, hopefully delving into some nitty-gritty thoughts and feelings that will make us all laugh, cry, and sigh a big sigh of relief. Hello and welcome back to the Non-Perfect Parents Club podcast. Today I am joined by Gillian Brown, who is an alcohol-free coach for mums. As some of you may be aware, for the last couple of years I haven't really drunk alcohol. I've done a couple of completely alcohol-free stints, and in between these I've had a clear limit that I haven't gone over. So I'm sure we'll discuss that in more detail as we get into the episode and start delving into the relationship us mums have with alcohol, why it's damaging, why we're starting to open conversations around an alcohol-free lifestyle, and the real biggie for me, the mummy wine culture. Hi Gillian, thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Gillian Brown. I am a mum and a wife, and I am an alcohol-free coach. So I am co-founder of Our Circle for Alcohol-Free Mums. So we support mums to either take a break or quit alcohol altogether. And we do that through challenges. We do a 2-month alcohol-free challenge. We've got a wee community on the go, and we've just recently started doing some one-to-one coaching as well. So I try and do all that in amongst my day job, which is like social work and learning and development in the kind of social work field. So kept busy.
An alcohol-free lifestyle. I'm sure some of the listeners will be gasping in horror and wondering why you would even consider it. So let's talk about why lots of us drink and the effects of alcohol on specifically women.
Well, what I've realised through my own drinking, because I'm now just over 4 years alcohol-free, I kind of gave up because I had just always drank. Like I suppose you ask what are the reasons why, like there almost didn't need to be a reason, like everything fell into that category. Stressful day, busy day, relaxing, socialising, I needed confidence, it was sunny, we couldn't get out because it was too wintry. Like there's a whole host of reasons. And I eventually gave up once my wee boy came along, and I just really struggled when I first became a mum. Motherhood definitely didn't come naturally to me at all, but I had alcohol as the solution because that's what it had been kind of pitched to me as, like, from a young age, like, and I thought I was using alcohol to relax and to switch off because I'd had a busy day and I deserved it. And I think that while that's my experience, I think it reflects a very similar experiences of a lot of the women that come to our circle. We drink because it was a rite of passage when we were growing up, and then it maybe moved from the park to the pub to uni to your own home. I mean, for me, there had to be a real reason why not to drink as opposed to a reason to drink. And then I think as you become a mum, it's like the whole mummy wine culture and stuff's around there, and it's like, oh, just have a drink, you deserve it. It's the end of the really, really stressful day. Sit down and relax. So, and I think sometimes as a mum, you think, well, if I don't sit down and do this, I'll never bloody sit down because I'll be running about and I'll be doing all sorts. So I think there is a whole host of reasons, but a lot of the time what I hear, it's about to calm down, to de-stress, to relax after all the demands that being a busy working mum, wife, sister, or the rest of it, like all the competing demands.
Tell us a little bit more about the ways it can affect women then.
So I suppose the main ways that it can affect people is when, and I'm not going to sit here and tell people don't drink. It's entirely up to them. But I always think people should know the kind of facts around alcohol, and then they can make up their own mind whether it fits in with what they want to achieve in life. So I suppose, see, as soon as you ingest alcohol, it's like it's no longer the Sauvignon Blanc or the Malbec or the like gin and tonic. It's ethanol, right? And that's that. It all boils down to that. And what ethanol is a top level toxin. So as soon as you digest that, the body stops doing everything else in order to break it down, right? So it just becomes the priority. And I mean everything: digesting food, fighting a cold, trying to balance hormones, which is a big one for me right now. All that just stops because the body needs to break down this toxin that's in our system. So like even if you've been on a kind of fitness regime, you've been to the gym, you come home and you maybe have a glass of wine at night, like the recovery for your muscles all stops while it breaks that down. So you can be really, really trying to do the best you can for yourself, and then it's almost like all that idea gets kicked into the long grass while we must concentrate on breaking down alcohol. One of the things that I found the most difficult for alcohol was sleep. And I know as mums, sleep is just either our kids are so wee, they're getting up through the night, or they're in their own bed, but they might be peeing the bed, or then they get older and there's the nightmares, or even older and they're coming home later than you. Like sleep's not a luxury for most mums, is it?
No.
It hangs in the balance as it is, and alcohol really messes up our sleep cycles. So I don't know if you've ever had like those, just a couple of glasses of wine at night, and then you're waking up at like 2-3 in the morning, can't get back to sleep. Nothing calm or sane or rational happens at 2-3 in the morning when you're waking up, and that's because the body gets flooded with cortisol and adrenaline to try and combat the depressant nature of alcohol. So just as the wine wears off, the cortisol kicks in, and you're like wide awake through the night. And yeah, I just think it's sleep's such a fine line as it is without mixing alcohol into it.
And that's one of the things I found as well when I was drinking alcohol, was that I just couldn't sleep, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't sleep, because obviously when I was younger it had just knocked me out. Like I'd have a drink and then that's it, I'd be dead to the world. But that was one of the main things for me was the sleep. I just couldn't sleep at all.
And like what you say, for some people, alcohol does help them sleep, or we start to think alcohol's helping us sleep. But when you are sleeping, it holds you in this kind of deep sleep. So it doesn't let you get to the REM sleep. So you might be, we've all had that, like, oh, I was like passed out, knocked out type sleep. But it's not doing all the sleep cycles that mean that when you wake up in the morning, you feel that you've had a good night's sleep. You still feel shattered. You're still exhausted because you've not had the proper sleep. So it wrecks it. It totally wrecks it.
Yeah, that's it. And like you said before, as a mom, sleep isn't a luxury anyway, is it? So that's something that so many of us value. Moving on to mummy wine culture. So I feel like drinking alcohol it's seen as a cool thing to do. It's, it's it's seen as the more favoured thing. Then if you don't drink, people question it. They try and push you to have a drink. They don't really understand it. So let's talk about the mummy wine culture and why it's damaging.
So mummy wine culture is that sense it's really subtle. So it's the things, it's from the birthday cards to the baby grows that say mummy needs wine, and the subtle messages and the humour that it uses very often is like mummy needs a drink, mum needs wine. It kind of insinuates that our kids are to blame for it. It kind of puts the responsibility on them, but it tells us that we are entitled to this glass of wine. We deserve the glass of wine. And that all kind of seeps into our psyche is like, oh, I've had this really, really stressful day. I'm so entitled to it. And it also gives us the sense that everybody's doing it. Like that's what mums do. And when you're a mum and you're desperately trying to fathom your way through this roller coaster, like the last thing you want is to feel outside the group, out with the crowd almost. And it can make it really, really difficult to say you don't want to do it, or to think that you have got to a point in your life that you no longer want to drink alcohol, because the idea of this like humorous, funny culture that all mums do it, all mums deserve it, it's almost like really built into the identity of motherhood. And to step outside that, it just makes it even more difficult for people to say, I don't want to do this anymore. Like it's not helping me to be the kind of mum that I want to be.
Yeah, and for me, the big thing with it all is that it's kind of being sold to us mums that it's okay for, or it should be our coping mechanism, and that we should be using it to relax rather than getting the support, the help, the more balanced lifestyle that we need to actually be able to relax as a mum or to thrive as a mum. It's kind of, it's not solving the problem, is it? It's just adding to it.
That's it. And there's almost like there's the kind of sense like, oh, just have a drink and calm down. Like as if stop being so frazzled, just have a drink, just relax. And that's the quick fix solution, as opposed to talking to women about what can families or society or anyone else do in order to make this role easier for everybody involved. And how can we talk to women and mums about understanding what it is that they need and finding a way to meet those needs in a healthier, safer and more empowering way. One of the lessons that we do in our circles, we try and get people to think about, why is it you're drinking? What is the need? Because for some people it's loneliness, for some people it's stress, for some people it's just to quieten like the racket in their head. But some people find that question really, really difficult to answer, because as mums, we're so busy. Like I bet you could tell just by looking at your kid what it is they need. We're really attuned to other people's needs. But when it comes to our own needs, we're a bit less capable of doing that, because we've never took the time to stop and think about it. And if you don't know what the need is, you definitely don't know how to meet it in a nice, safer, healthier way. So it's like, so to us is just this quick fix, like calm down. That's all it takes, is just a glass of wine at the end of the night and life's issues have been resolved. But it's just not, it's not like that. I just think it's a really unfair way to treat mums.
Yeah, and what you were saying about like we'd know how to meet our children's needs. We're kind of conditioned to think that we shouldn't be meeting our needs, that, to be, in order to be a good, in quotation, marks, we ignore our needs and we provide for everyone else, and that the opposite, in fact, is the case. Is what's true is that we should be looking after our own needs as one of the priorities.
I think as well, when you think about that messaging to ourselves, like our kids then pick up on that. Like our kids do what we do, not what we say. So if our kids start to see us coming home or settling down each night because we're stressed for whatever reason with a glass of wine or whatever it is, they will pick these things up. Whereas I'd much rather now I'm able to say to Alfie, like, no, not tonight. Tonight I need a bath, or tonight I'm going to go and spend like half an hour with my journal, or I'm going to run. Like, and he then starts to see other tools, other ways that I become a better version of myself, and hopefully they start to pick that up, and not the idea that you just come home and have a drink to deal with stress or sadness or whatever it is that you're dealing with that night.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you say, they do what they see, don't they? Not what we tell them to do. And the other thing I was going to say about was, for me personally, one of the, I think probably the biggest reason why I stopped drinking was the hangover, because nobody wants to parent with a hangover. It is horrific.
It's awful. Absolutely. And I think that's the balance as well. Like, I think some people say, oh, I don't get a hangover. And you're like, but you don't have the motivation the next day to do what you on a good day would say or do to your kids. Like, you don't. You're kind of, even if my hangovers were absolutely horrendous, it's a wonder why I drank as long as I did. But even just the tiredness, the poor food, you're just kind of dragging yourself through the next day, and even the following day after that sometimes. And I think then as well, as a mum, it's not just the physical effects of the hangover, it's all the guilt and all the shame that then comes with that, because we know we've not done what we wanted to do with our children the next day. And I'm not saying every Sunday or every Saturday afternoon's meant to be all these like wild days out and all the rest of it, but we know ourselves when we've just not given them the attention that we wanted to give them, or we've not done the things that we could or should have done. There's the guilt and everything that just makes everything feel even worse.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing as well, isn't it? Like, you know, if you're busy or if you're ill and you can't do something with your children, there's like a valid reason for it. Whereas when you're hungover, I mean, I don't want to say it's not a valid reason, but do you see what I'm getting at? It's like, well, you didn't have to be hungover. Yeah. Like, you could have done what you were going to do with your children. It's just a case of, it's a consequence, isn't it, of the alcohol?
Yeah, and I think for me there's always like a trade-off, and only you know what you can settle for on that trade-off. So for instance, some people will think there's no way I can go on this works night out without having a drink, and you're like, fine, that's okay. Everybody's got their own choices to make, but there is always like the consequence either that night or the next day or whatever. And I think when it gets to that kind of tipping point, that's when we want to maybe start thinking about, do I really need to, or do I really want to have the drink that night when I know the next day it's going to be either not what I want or harder or like more stressful.
So why alcohol free? Why not just limit it?
Well, one of the things that it feels, the thing is, so one of the other effects that one of the other ways that alcohol affects women, or everybody actually, is what it does to our like dopamine circuits, or just our general pleasure pain cycles. And one of the things I always thought I was having a drink in order to relax and de-stress. But a study's shown, like, even if you have like 14 units of alcohol a week, now these can be spread across the whole week, doesn't need to be all in one go. And just to put it into context, a large glass of wine is like 3.3 units of alcohol. I certainly never drank anything other than a large or a very large glass of wine. So not a lot of alcohol. And what it's doing, if you drink that, again, either all in one go or over the course of the week, it actually increases your baseline cortisol levels. So you're not actually relaxing at all. You're increasing the cortisol that's going around your body. When the cortisol is the stress hormone, therefore making yourself more stressed, just with a small amount of alcohol. We've already touched on sleep. I mean, you don't get the good sleep. That's when the food choices are poorer, the ability or the willingness to go to the gym, like all our usual decision making kind of goes out the window when we are shattered. So alcohol, it doesn't take a lot to have those effects. Like, you don't need to be blind drunk in order to feel those effects either that night, the next day, or into the next day, depending on how kind of vulnerable you are to the effects of alcohol. And what I find is, like, some people do say, like, oh, I'll only drink this, or I'll only drink on these days, and I'll only drink like X amount of drinks. See all those rules? They're absolutely exhausting. And see, when you, and believe me, I made those rules to myself. Like, I would only drink wine. I wouldn't move on to anything else. I wouldn't start until Alfie went to his bed. I'll only do it at the weekend. Remember things like, I'll no longer buy wine with the shopping. I'll only buy wine when I actually want to drink it. But see the psychological pressure of all those rules. And if you break those rules, if you don't meet your own expectations, well, that's just another layer of shame and stuff that us mums put on ourselves. Like, oh, I couldn't even do that right. That's another thing I done wrong. Whereas see, when you actually just say, that's it, I'm not doing it. I've had enough. It doesn't suit me anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. Not only do you save the time from the drinking, you save the time from the hangover, you save the time on the headspace from those rules that you've been creating in order to limit or reduce or moderate, as we kind of call it in the alcohol-free space. And it's just, it feels like a breath of fresh air when you finally just say, do you know what? I'm not going to do it. Like, I done a number of alcohol-free challenges. I stopped drinking through a group called 1 Year No Beer. And I'd done a 28-day challenge here and one there. And some I would successfully pass with flying colours, and others I would fail miserably. But see the damage that those, at the time, the damage that those wee failures done when you never kept up with the rules that you had set in place, or they just again, it just builds up this horrible sense of shame. And us mums do not need another kick at the shameful football. Do you know what I mean? We're so good at layering that on ourselves. Whereas when I had finally came to the realization, like, do you know how good I feel when I don't drink, and then how rubbish I feel when I do drink? Eventually the evidence just spoke for itself, and I was like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And you can then say quite confidently, no, I don't drink. So the peer pressure and the, on you go, have a drink, don't be boring, you know yourself that that's all a lot of rubbish, because you're living it and you're experiencing it, and you know how much, much better you feel just because you've not had a couple of drinks.
And sometimes it's just hearing someone else say that they don't drink as well. I know for me, I wasn't really enjoying drinking alcohol, and it wasn't until my friend said, "Oh, I don't drink now, I've stopped drinking," that I kind of thought, "Oh, I could do that. Like,
Yes.
I don't enjoy drinking, so why am I doing it?" And that's
Yeah.
when that was the first time that I stopped drinking, and it afterwards I was like, "Why did I never think of this before?" But I think it's so ingrained in our culture. It's just something you do, and it just hadn't crossed my mind to not drink. So yeah, sometimes just hearing other people say it is enough to kind of make you start thinking about it.
100%. Like, it's like one of the biggest fears for people is what other people will say and what other people will think. And then 9 times out of 10, after a wee while of not drinking, see those people you were worried about, they will then come to you and they're like, how did you do that? I don't want to drink either. And you'll be on nights out and you'll realise that less and less people are drinking. The alcohol-free space is just exploding right now. It's a really, really exciting place.
Yeah, I do feel like it's being talked about a lot more now than it was definitely a couple of years ago. So where would you say to start with going alcohol free?
So, if you were looking to start going alcohol free, I would advise people to like rely on alcohol free drinks. Like, there's so many lovely brands out there now, and have fun trialing them out. Like, just see what it is you like. Because for me, I want an adult drink. I want a nice glass, whether it's sitting at the dinner table in the house with my husband or whether it's going out and I'm at a wedding or a night out. I still want an adult drink. I don't want to be sitting with like a pint glass of Diet Coke. And I hate when you go to a bar and they've got a mocktail that's technically just fruit juice, which I could give to my kid. Like, I want an adult drink. But I would always like look ahead, plan ahead. If I'm going out, I look at the alcohol-free options that they've got before I go. Certainly in the early days, I would find out so that you can just ask for it and order it and let that order like roll off your tongue. Do you know that way? Like, don't be nervous about saying it, just say it confidently. If it's a night out, I'd sometimes maybe let people know that you're not drinking before you go. And that sometimes takes a bit of the sting out of it, if you know what I mean, rather than having to say face to face, I'm not drinking. And then people start layering on the peer pressure, because that's the bit that makes us feel uncomfortable. We all just want to be part of the crowd. I would write down your reasons why you want to stop drinking or why you want to take a break. Get really clear on that, because I'm not going to lie, it's not easy. There's this world's alcohol daft. So get a bit curious about what it is, why it is you want to stop, and just keep asking yourself those questions like, so why, what is it about that makes me want to stop? What is, and really, really, really drill down. But I wouldn't do it alone. Find other people that are doing it. Like, there's loads of communities out there. Instagram is full of Instagram accounts and stuff that people are sharing their views, sharing their experiences, and just bounce your ideas off like, just use other people's lessons. There's loads of books and stuff out there. Like, there's this whole area in the bookshop called Quit Lit. I never knew any of it existed until I stopped drinking. But there's like books that are quite educational. Honest to God, there's like books that are quite educational. There's books that are kind of memoir, like people's stories about giving up booze. So there's loads out there. Once you scratch the surface, there's just so much. But my main tip would be just treat it as an experiment. Take all the drama out of it. Like, we seem to think if I don't drink tonight, that's it. That's the end of the world. Like, if I don't drink on this works night out, if I don't drink at this wedding, like, I used to say to myself, I stopped drinking, it was during lockdown. Like, I'm just not drinking for tonight. And see if I hate it, I'll get hammered tomorrow night. But we seem to make it such a dramatic thing. Like, we seem to, as if it's so final. Like, if I don't drink, I will never go out again. Like, well, why don't you just try it? And if it's absolutely hellish, get leathered with your friends next weekend. Like, it doesn't need to be such a big drama. Just test it out. See how you feel that night. See how you feel the next day. See if you still had energy for the kids and you didn't eat like Domino's for lunch and McDonald's for dinner. Like, just try it out.
I think a common maybe misconception is that if you don't drink, you can't go out, because then what are you meant to do when you're out? I know lots of people that just associate the two together. What would you say to someone who wanted to try alcohol free, but they were worried about sort of confidence when they're out because they're not drinking? I know there's lots of people, like we've mentioned, who use alcohol to have confidence when they're out and socially and dancing. And it can be really hard if you're taking that out to then go out and feel comfortable.
It does. It absolutely does. And there's no getting away from it. I thought I was a confident person, but when I look back, I very typically would have like a glass of wine before I even went and met the girls, because there was that kind of just that social awkwardness. There was a bit of anxiety around it. What I would say though is I now feel much more confident in what it is I want to do and who it is I want to go out with. And when you go out as yourself, not as the halfway down a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc version of yourself, but when you go out as yourself and you get the positive feedback and you have an interaction and you have a good night and you go home, that stuff is where confidence lies. Confidence does not lie in going out, having a drink, and then spending the next day worrying yourself sick about what you said, when you got home, who you text, why you said that. You wonder if she thinks this, you wonder if they think that. That all just breeds that level of anxiety. But when you do it, it is difficult the first few times, don't get me wrong. And talking about dancing, I thought my dancing days were well and truly over. And I was just at a silent disco on Friday night when I came out. Oh my God, I was like exhausted for dancing. The sweat was lashing off me because I just went and had the best time. But it does take practice. In order to be confident in my first few times, I'd literally practice what it is I'm going to say if somebody asks me, like, what do you want to drink? I'd have it rehearsed what I'm going to say. Like, why are you not drinking? I'd have it rehearsed what I was going to say, and then I'd divert and ask them a question about themselves, because people would rather talk about themselves than they would talk about you. So just say, oh, I've got a really big, like, I've got the kids' football match tomorrow, or I've got a really big thing on at work and I can't be, like, I need to be on full cylinders. How was the holiday to Lanzarote? And they're off talking about themselves 9 times out of 10 before they even notice that any more about you not drinking.
That's a really good tactic. I really like that. I've never kind of thought of doing that. One thing I've just kind of thought of is, I think one of the big things when you are out and you're not drinking is like, oh, what are people going to think? I hate the whole, they always give you drinking a pint glass, or like you said before about the rubbish glass. But I found that if people don't know that you're not drinking, if you're just there having a drink, they don't even notice anyway. And if they're all drinking, they're usually that drunk, and it's just, it's not even in their kind of, I can't think of the word, but it's not even on their minds that you might not be drinking. They're just out having a good time and they're with you, and it's only, like you say, if you make it a big kind of drama, it draws attention to it, I found.
100%. So if you were to have an alcohol-free drink, it just looks like a drink and nobody knows the difference. Even if there's no alcohol-free drinks, I'll often ask for a tonic water. All the bars have got the lovely Fever Tree or whatever, the nice flavoured drinks. I ask for it in a wine glass. And people don't notice. And then see when the conversation when somebody's said the same thing to me twice, 3 times a limit, I'm like, it's time for me to go home. And how many times have you been on a night out and the next day the WhatsApp chat is all about, how did you get home? When did you leave? Like, I don't remember getting home. These people don't even remember when you left. So I don't know why we're worried about it. You could be up the road and in your bed and waking up the next day doing all sorts of wonderful things with no stress, no shame, no anxiety about it. And they're all still trying to piece together when they got home, never mind when you got home.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So have you got any other tips or advice that you found helpful for living an alcohol-free lifestyle?
I would definitely write down your whys. Write down all the reasons why you drink and all the reasons why you don't want to drink, and just see whether they're true or not. Do you know what I mean? A lot of times the reasons why we drink are all these silly stories that we've been telling ourselves. Definitely alcohol-free drinks. Find a community. Like, obviously our circle's set up for mums, but there's so many out there. There's ones for dads, there's ones for guys, there's ones for just a whole host. Like, I done it with 1 Year No Beer and it was brilliant. Like, there was just so much community support out there. Because see, as soon as you start talking in a community and you realise it's not just you realise that there's all these other people all getting sick of alcohol. And just remember, you don't need to have a problem to stop drinking. Like, the idea of there being this rock bottom incident, it doesn't need to be like that. You can make the decision on your own that you're just feeling fed up, and just embrace it. Run it as an experiment, and always book something fantastically fresh and hangover free for the following morning, because that's when you can get really smug and really, really proud of yourself for not drinking the night before.
What words of encouragement would you say to a mum who is considering going alcohol-free?
Do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And my only regret is that I've not done it sooner. It's without doubt the only regret I've got is that I didn't do it sooner. I have become calmer. Like, I used to have to take medication for my anxiety. I don't take that anymore. I am fitter, healthier. I've still not lost all this weight that a lot of people talk about when they say that when you stop drinking and you'll lose weight. I never quite fathomed out that path. I think I used too many Doritos and dips when I stopped drinking, that I never managed that. But yeah, I just do it. It really is. There's a happier, healthier version of you out there. And you deserve it. You deserve, in our circle, we always say we deserve more, because we just think we deserve so much more than a crappy consolation prize, which is a glass of wine at the end of the night or end of the week or whatever your kind of drinking pattern is. You just deserve so much more than that.
And it's like you said earlier as well, like it just give it a try. If you're thinking about it, just give it a try. It doesn't mean that that's it. It's not as black and white as it's kind of portrayed to be, is it?
No, just try it, do an experiment, see what works for you, what didn't work. Like I told you, I had loads and loads of slip ups, and I wouldn't even call them failures now, because when I look back at them, I'm like, that's why that happened, or that's why, like, you just learn from it all. But yeah, take the drama out of it, just run your own wee experiment, see if you like, try a week, try 2 weeks, try longer, and just see how you feel. Your body, your mind will tell you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any other points that you'd like to?
No, I think that's it. I think that's it. I think you should just everyone should give it a go and make up their mind on their own.
Well, thank you for joining us, Gillian. I'll add your links into the podcast description so that people can find you if they want to know more or know more about your circle and the things that you're doing. But it's been great chatting with you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to follow, share with other parents you know, and if you haven't already, please leave a review on the app that you're listening on. A new episode is released every week. Follow or subscribe to be notified when each new episode goes live. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please get in touch via any of my social media channels, website or email. You can find Gillian on Instagram at alcohol_free_mums_coaching. We would love to hear any comments or your thoughts about what we've discussed in this episode. Thank you, Gillian, for joining me on today's episode. It's been great to have you, and thank you to everyone for listening.